So I feel that with what you just said, society today, and that's probably, I think, the biggest problem is people are too selfish. Yeah. So I'll tell you why. I'll explain to you why.
Giving you the chance to leave.
The next generation is going to follow cue from the previous generation, right? So if you were to go back to the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, the men and the women, they got married, they had lasting relationships. Okay. When it came to divorce, it was, far to none. Like, it was a very small percentage. Then you came into burning bra, the birth pill, and all that shit in the late 60s, early 70s. Now things started to slowly change. Today, society that we live in, marriage has no value.
Can I ask you a question? My parents have been together for like 47 years. I would have divorced my dad 100 times over again.
But you're not your mom.
I'm not my mom, but she's also an old school Italian that would put up with being cheated on, being abused.
But at the same time, your dad probably would have divorced you.
Get that on that's you have to, wife, first of all.
Listen, no. Like,
every time I was a good wife.
You're not, and I'll tell you why. For your dad, not for the. I'll tell you why. If you're saying that you would leave your dad if you were his wife,
he was very abusive emotionally. He cheated on my mom at one point.
But that means
means
he would have never stayed with you either. That's my whole point.
He wouldn't have got as far as he did, right?
He would have never married you.
Different times, though. My mom and dad had 5 kids together. My mom had a first one at 17, her 5th one at 27. What was she going to do? Was she going to go be home? Was she going to go?
It's not a matter of that.
Well, she couldn't have left.
So you're telling me
my father.
So you're telling me your mom stayed only because of circumstance, not because of love?
Of course, she loved him.
So there you go.
But there's being in love with someone and loving someone and caring for their well-being. My mom and dad have only been with each other, and when I was a teenager, I knew my dad was having an affair, okay? I knew it. When my mom would cry in the bathroom and she wouldn't show any of us her emotions. And I remember thinking to myself, that fucking piece of shit's done something bad, right? And I know now at my age because she's told me what happened when I was a teenager.
And if you were in her shoes, you would have left
her. I would have fucking took all 5 of my kids
I understand that, but what I'm trying to tell you is, again...
But is that right, Cameron? To stay with a man or any human in general? Why would you want to stay with someone who doesn't respect you as a person?
I cannot judge people based on whatever their value system may be. Everyone has their own value system, right? You've got people who are in a marriage and they won't tolerate the tiniest thing and they're ready to divorce their guy and move on.
That's stupid.
Right? No, but that's what you think. If another female was sitting here and she had that perspective, she'd be like, my guy works too much. And, he earns a great living, but I want him to at least spend this much time and he's not, so I'm leaving him. It's like, well, fuck, he's providing for you and the kids. He's working his ass off. He's not cheating. He's a good husband.
I agree. You're right.
But that woman also has her perspective, right? Just the way you have yours and your mom has hers.
I have a moral compass you should follow. And if you're cheating on your wife who's taking care of your 5 kids, my mom was loyal. She cooked homemade Italian. No, she's not Catholic.
Are you Catholic?
She's Christian.
Are you guys Catholic?
She's Christian.
You guys are Catholic.
I'm not baptized.
No, but
Catholic.
I'm saying your parents, like your grandparents.
My grandparents, yeah.
Okay, they were Catholic.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's also, it's an upbringing. Divorce in Catholicism is not allowed. You're not allowed to divorce. Did you know that?
My family got kicked out of the church for that reason.
There you go.
My mom did kick my dad out once.
I'm talking about divorce.
He was gone for 9 months and he cried. This is back in the 90s. You couldn't call and text. He just showed back up at the house begging to come home, right?
My point to you is the women, like your mom's era, put up with way more than women today.
Is that right, though? Is that right?
When it comes to depending on, now, look at the bigger picture. They have 5 kids. Now, if your mom would have been a single mom and the kids were very young, what would have happened with those 5? One could have been a drug addict. One could have gone to prostitution. One could have committed suicide. Who knows? So parents make sacrifices. That's the whole thing about life.
But I just want to know, do you think that that's right?
No,
Could you stay with someone who emotionally abuses you, cheats on you?
No. So when that happens, of course, the individual should go for counseling and talk and figure out, why the fuck is this guy cheating on me? What's the reason for it? Is he just a scumbag? Is it because something between us? However, I'm not going to sit here and judge your mom and say that she did the wrong thing. The sacrifices she made was for the greater good, for her children, and also for her family. I don't think your mom was doing it because your dad bought her a Ferrari. Okay, because some women do that for that reason. So she did it for her
She
own.
didn't have any money when we were growing up.
So that's
it's
your
even
mom,
worse. She's
that's your
staying with a
mom.
bum.
No, that's your mom's character, right? So
Yeah.
I find today, like the divorce rate's at like 50% or 55% right now. It's
Yeah.
fucking insane. And there's so many single parents.
Listen, Cameron, my mom was so hot when I was young. Like I remember in high school, she used to come pick me up in grade 12.
So you got your dad's looks, I guess.
No,
My math teacher in grade 12 was so obsessed with my mom. He'd always say, "Is your mom going to come by and say, pick you up from school?"
But did your mom ever consider being with another man?
No
So okay,
fucking way. She said when we were young, if your dad and I left, like went our separate ways and he left, she said I would stay alone the rest of my life.
So I respect a woman like that.
My mom was my age when I was in high school, and I didn't think she was so young. When I look back, I thought she was old, but now I'm that age. And
So you know what? If you ask me, I respect a woman like that.
That's
I'm not saying
dedication.
that it was right with what your father did.
No.
But your mother's got character. Like she sacrificed. She obviously loved your father, and she loves him. She's devoted to him. That's devotion. Now, whether or not it was right for your father to abuse her the way that I don't agree with that. But the fact that your mom is saying that even if they were to separate, if he left her, she wouldn't remarry.
never, she would die.
So that's
she would
true
have died.
love.
She would have died alone.
That's unconditional love. So unconditional love means no matter what condition that person puts you into, you're still going to love them. You won't leave them.
When you go through all these decades together, right? So the 20s, she said, were so hard because my dad liked to party. He liked to drink. My mom didn't do anything. She didn't drink. She didn't smoke. She was always home cooking some kind of homemade food. My dad went through the worst years with her. 20s were the hardest, and he did lots of bad things. 30s were a bit better. She said the 40s and the 50s were when it started getting really good, and now they're in their 60s, and she said he's just the best.
Well, there you go.
He's the best husband
So-
ever. And you had to go through all that fucking shit just to get to that?
Yeah.
No.
You gotta go
Well,
through
hold
rain
on,
to
hold
get
on.
to a rainbow.
I'm sorry. So listen.
I don't buy it.
So what do you think is better for a woman to get fucking plowed by 100 different
No, I
guys to
don't
finally
agree.
get there?
No, I don't agree
Like,
with sleeping
be
around.
like in a line,
Period.
So women, I find, and I'm not saying all women, this is my opinion. People like it, they do, they don't, I don't give a fuck. Women, and including men too, I'm not saying men are off the hook here. Nowadays, today, I don't believe that a lot of women are willing to make sacrifices. I believe a lot of women know, or they think the grass is greener on the other side because there's so many options available that they're like, I'm not going to put up with this bullshit. And sometimes, like what Cheyenne just, what did you say? What was the quote you just made?
She doesn't
Storm
remember.
to get through the rainbow.
You gotta go through this rain to get to the rainbow.
And I'm not saying that again, that, oh yeah, a woman should endure a man cheat. That to me is bullshit. Like if you're married to somebody, you should be committed to them. And that's that. And that to me is a high value man.
So, like with my,
but keep one thing in mind, that choice was your mother's choice, right? So it wasn't your father's. Your father cheated on her. It was your mother's choice to stay or not. So hats off to her because she's a loyal, dedicated woman. I'm not saying she deserved it, but she's a good woman. Like any man, do you agree, Ryan? Like that's a good woman. Like for a guy to have a woman like that, I'm not saying you should abuse it. Now imagine if your father didn't cheat on her. Like she deserved a man who'd be loyal, but she's a good woman.
Yeah, she's a good woman, but I mean, it's hard to. It's like for me, I'm not of an older generation. Like it's hard to understand like putting up with all that shit. Like that's
all old school, right?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I'm just. I think I'm too young to understand. Like I'm kind of with Elizabeth. I'd be like, fuck this. Like I'm out of here.
I don't know, dudes. Like my grandparents were married for 55 years, and my grandfather. I know. I have a dramatic life. My grandfather tried to kill my grandmother.
What?
Yeah, after 55 years of marriage, and that's when she finally said, because she lived through it. Thank God. She was like, I want to sell the house and I want to get a nursing home, and I don't want to be in the same nursing like home as him. But she was she would say the same thing. You have to go into a room, but like before that happened, you'd have to go into a room if you're having problems and you've married in your marriage, and you fight the problem. You don't fight each other. Like it doesn't matter what it is, like whether one's hitting each other, whatever, stealing from each other. You got to sit down and work at it together. And like, I don't know. I do kind of agree with the newer generation in a sense, and that it's part of also the reason why I got married is because I kind of just wanted to hold over that tradition. Like no one's had a divorce in my family, and I was the only one that hadn't been married, so I just kind of wanted to carry on the torch sort of thing. But at the end of the day, no, I'm not going to sit by and like get emotional and turmoil abuse. If that's happening, I can't be a good parent to anybody or a good person to anybody if I'm being treated like a piece of shit.
Yeah, no, I agree. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that any woman should put up with. That's not the question here, because I agree with you. No woman should put up with that.
no
at all.
person,
one,
no human
right?
in general.
If you're
should be abused.
if you're married, right, you have to
Valentine.
understand the vows that you make, right? So you have to respect that. So if you're not going to be able to respect that, don't get married. Number one, and if you are, get divorced and go fucking do your thing. It's unfair for you to take advantage of a woman who's a loyal, devoted woman, and you know she's not going to leave you. So because of that, you abuse that. I don't agree with that. But I do feel that both men and women today, when it comes to relationships, they're not as sacred anymore.
No, you're right about
You're
the
right.
marriage like
Yes.
these days. Like marriage these
Today
days
is
is
just-
spending 100 fucking grand and having 80 people at a party, and then that's it.
That's
Yeah.
it, right? And
Yeah.
then from there, if something happens, you
Yeah,
know,
like vows mean shit.
yeah, and even after they get married, like, you know, I've got buddies of mine that are married and they go out to fucking strip clubs and shit still, you know. And,
I was at a strip club 2 days ago.
and,
Like,
and then their partners, like the ladies go out, you know, once a week. They all fucking dolled up, the boobs are hanging out. They go out to bars and they dance and they drink and they flirt, and then they go home to their husband. So is that like a meaningful relationship? I don't fucking know. Not for me, it isn't. Like if you're with me, why are you going out all dolled up and getting attention from other men? Am I not providing
I've never been
enough?
to a nightclub in my life.
okay, you know
So,
what? This is one of our biggest arguments in our marriage with my husband and I, because he's an introvert. He stays inside. He says the same thing. Like, you're married to me. There's no need. I don't like, there's dinner at home. I'm going to stay home and eat the dinner you've cooked. Like me, I'm like, shit, it's Thursday night. Like, it's my Friday night. I'm like, I'm going to the bar, like, or the strip club, right?
Let me ask you, when you go to the bar, do you ever get hit on?
Well, that's why I go to the strip club, because I don't get as hit on. But when I go to the bar, yeah, I get hit on. But I know my husband knows that I know how to hold my own. But when I get home and I'm coming in and I'm falling over and I'm trying to get all over him because I'm hot and heavy and horny, right? Because I'm all drunk, he's looking at me like, you're a mess. Like, you're a fucking slob. Like, like, I get off of me, right? And this is our argument where he says to me, like, why did you get married so young?
Perfect point.
If you aren't ready to settle down. And it was like, well, I didn't think I was going to catch me a good one this quick. Now that I did, it was like, you know, so I do. And it is. And now that we're having this conversation, I hate to say this, but I sound like a horrible wife. And I have to go home and I have to work on some things. I have a lot of things to work on, Kim.
I think that when people share their wedding vows, it's just a bunch of words, and there's not a lot of meaning behind it. Like through sickness and health, and you know, whatever the fuck it is.
For me, I was
Like
thinking
better or worse and all that kind of stuff, right? So if people were to be a little bit more committed and hold themselves liable to what they've said in their vows, it would last a lot longer. And as well, it's also the circle that's around them, I feel.
Yeah.
I feel the influences, like their girl group, like, don't put up with his shit. You know, he didn't care about your birthday or whatever, blah, 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 blah. He's a fucking asshole. And you shouldn't go back with him and blah, whatever. He went out with his buddies for the weekend. And then the guy as well, you know, his friends will say, you don't have to put up with that shit. He's like, when I have a kid, who gives a fuck? There's tons of, you know, kids who have divorced parents and they turn out normal. Yeah, you may think they turn out normal, but it does affect them. So people are not willing to put that effort in and go through that grind. And at the end of it, they're going to get rewarded. It's worth it, you know? So, anybody else have anything to say? Because I want to move on to the next topic, which is really, really funny and interesting.
I
No?
saw a video. It was a woman being interviewed by her husband, and he literally was asking her if she would ever cheat on him. And she said, yes, I would. And
That's funny.
What?
yeah, but
Okay.
she had
Wow.
a really great like points to back up, and I wish that I just memorized it word for word.
How can you have any
So,
points
no,
to
no,
back
no.
up justifying cheating on your
The
husband?
point of it was that she would cheat on him if she was putting herself in certain situations. So, but because she loves him, she's not going to put herself in those situations.
That's fucked up. That means she doesn't have any control.
No, she does have control. She doesn't put herself in those situations.
No, having control would be, even if you were in that situation, you wouldn't cheat. So it's
it was
like
beautiful when I watched it.
Listen, if I was an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic, I'm like, oh, no, I'm not going to drink anymore unless I go to a bar or if there's booze in front of me. Well, then fuck, you haven't been cured.
I'm a recovered alcoholic, and I only drink socially. So
you're not getting my
Are
point.
you sure you recovered?
I'm saying that if a man was to tell a woman, hey, you know, I would never cheat on her unless I went to a strip club, well, then fuck, that means you would cheat on her. That's all it's
Yeah.
going to take. Like, it should be that when you are the most vulnerable, that's when it matters, right? Because are you going to now compromise your values because it's available? Something is available that you should not be doing that. For a woman to say, "Oh yeah, well, I avoid putting myself in that position, so for that reason I'm loyal." But if I was in that position, I wouldn't be. Well, fuck, then you're a hoe. Like, that's
I will
the
write
bottom
that
line.
on that video.
You should reply and say,
There's your comment.